Namaskar viewers, hello and welcome to Sunset TV. I am Tina Jha, you're watching Perspective. The Calcutta High Court on Tuesday held that appointment or reappointment of Vice-Chancellors in 22 state-run universities in West Bengal are unsustainable in law and they have no right to continue in such positions. The court said it is essential that the appointment of the Vice-Chancellor should be strictly done in accordance with the provisions of the law. It also said that the UGC Regulations 2018 will prevail over the conflicting provisions of the State Universities Act under which these appointments were made. Now, the order was passed on a PIL challenging the validity of the amendments to the West Bengal Universities Act carried out in 2012 and 2014. Following these amendments, the state continued to appoint, reappoint and even extend the tenures of the VCs of several universities in the state. Former West Bengal Governor Jagdeep Dhankar had also raised serious concerns over the manner in which the Vice-Chancellors were appointed in the state of West Bengal. So in Perspective today, we will try and understand in detail about the contentions made in the PIL, the Calcutta High Court's judgment on the matter, and more importantly, the role of the state in appointing Vice-Chancellors, an issue that concerns not just West Bengal, but several other states in the country as well. And for this, joining me are three distinguished panelists virtually. I'm pleased to welcome on this edition of Perspective, Professor Sushma Yadav, she's a member UGC, Mr. Kapil Sankla, he's an advocate, Supreme Court, and Mr. Sambit Pal, he's a political analyst. Thank you to all my guests for joining me on the program today. Mr. Sambit Pal, to you first. Let's first begin by understanding what really the matter is all about. What are the contentions that were made in the PIL challenging the appointment, the reappointment, and also the extension of tenure of the Vice-Chancellors of at least 22 state universities?
See, the contention was the criteria that was set after the amendment to this University Act in the state of West Bengal in 2012 and 2014. According to the UGC guideline, the person who is applying to the post of Vice Chancellor has to have about 10 years of experience as professor. So that was reduced to 5 years as professor that person had to serve. And that was the main contention in the PIL, that you cannot change these rules because education is in the concurrent list, and whatever is decided by the union government, you'll have that will prevail over the state amendment or state act. Now that was a thing, but another contention was that 22 VCs were reappointed in state universities in Bengal without the consultation and proper process and approval of the chancellor, who happens to be the governor of the state, governor of West Bengal. Interestingly, the governor of West Bengal was replaced by the chief minister as a chancellor of the state universities in 2022. Though that act was not that law was passed in the assembly, but that did not get approval of the governor, and it is still pending. So it is prima facie, it's a very legal issue, but at the hindsight, at the background, it's more about a political issue, where the governor and the state government was at loggerheads on many issues, and the state government wanted to bypass the governor's office and appoint and reappoint the vice chancellors of this university. So that was the main contention, and the High Court, the Calcutta High Court, has ruled against it, and they said that these are all illegal appointments because the process has not been followed properly, and the criteria that was set by the government of West Bengal is also not in accordance with the guideline of the UGC.
So what is the kind of response that we are getting from the state government, Mr. Pal, once after the High Court's order?
So now the state government is in a good relation with the new governor, C.V. Anand Bose, and they think that they can sort it out with the governor and there won't be any problem. The problem, in fact, started with the then governor, Jagdeep Dhankar ji, who is now the Vice President of India at this moment, and he was not ready to listen to whatever was being done or suggested by the state government, so they were at loggerheads. But recently, in the last week of February, the state education minister, Bharati Basu, had met the governor, and after the discussion with the governor, the reappointments were done, but now it has been rejected by the Calcutta High Court, and the state government is now mulling action through legal process, and how they can sort this issue out So that is the discussion that is going on at this moment.
Okay, Professor Yadav, your perspective on the Calcutta High Court order, because the order does refer to the 2018 UGC guidelines on the appointment of the Vice Chancellors. If you could help us and our viewers understand what these guidelines actually say about who really has the power of the appointment, of the reappointment and extension of tenure of the Vice Chancellors?
I think the appointment of Vice Chancellors is very important for keeping the quality or the controlling the quality of higher education in India. And for years and years, there were different kinds of appointments because education, as you already heard, is in concurrent list. So states had their own rules there where the chancellors were the governors. And so the governors would decide about the appointment of the vice chancellor. At the central level, it is the visitor, which is the president of India. For central universities, he decides or she decides about the appointments. Final decision is taken by the president of India. These were the systems till now. But in 2018, the latest regulations that UGC came out with was required because let me share with you, there were states where we had vice chancellors who would not qualify to be a professor,
Right.
who would not be called a scholar, who were really not fit to be administrative heads because the vice chancellor is an administrative leader. In fact, he leads the university by his academic credentials, by his administrative acumen, and by the very moral right that a senior academician has. So these concerns were raised by many states and many academicians. Therefore, the UGC regulations came because let me share with you, it is the UGC's duty, responsibility, and prerogative also to look after these academic standards of higher education in the entire country.
Okay.
And since it is concurrent list, ultimately the central law should prevail. However, we found in many state universities, and I've seen over the years how the governors at some places try to give them the right perspective on appointment of vice chancellors, and the state governments at places welcomed them, at places did not. So one of the most important regulation was that a professor with 10 years experience and enough administrative experience can be appointed as a vice chancellor. And when we say a professor with 10 years experience, of course, there are other qualifications also, that one should have a vision, one should have an understanding of higher education, one should have enough experience of various administrative positions which a university entails, that is a good researcher also, a dean also, a head of the department also, because these are the various stages which a professor usually passes through and which a vice chancellor has to ultimately tackle also and work with as a team.
Right.
Therefore, it was kept in the regulation that 10 years experience as a professor is a must for a vice chancellor.
Absolutely. So these are contentions that have been made in West Bengal as well. But Mr. Sankla, where is the difference in interpretation? Because this is something that we're not just seeing in West Bengal. There's been tussle in other states. We've seen several state governments bringing in laws, trying to sort of replace the governor with the chief minister in place of the chancellor, who will have the ultimate authority. So is there a difference in interpretation of the power of authority?
Well, not really. There are two aspects to it. One is the practical aspect. The practical aspect is that we have seen teachers scam and scams like those. So, of course, politicians want to control, and this is one of the most powerful ways of controlling education, teachers, etc. Now, the problem actually arose in 1976. Education was a state subject. It was under the absolute right of the states to dictate the kind of education that they want. So the legal perspective, as I was telling you, is that in 1976, there was an amendment to the Constitution of India, which is called the 42nd Amendment. And in the 42nd Amendment, the education was taken away from the state list and put in the concurrent list. As rightly pointed out, there are three lists. One is the union list, the state list, and the concurrent list. The state government of India is exclusively responsible for whatever is there and entitled and has the power to decide on whatever is there in the union list or the federal list. Then is the state list, which is the exclusive jurisdiction of the state. And the third is the concurrent list, the list which is decided by both the center and the state. And this is where the problem arises. The problem arises because the state, to control whatever is there in the concurrent list, comes out with certain rules and regulations. Article 246, if I'm not mistaken, clearly states that if there is any contradiction, clash, or dispute between a decision of the state and a decision of the center, then a decision of the center or the parliament will prevail. And this is the second limb of how the trouble arises. Now, to answer what happened here, you see, UGC has two powers. One, of course, is it is University Grant Commission. It grants commission money. The second is it actually ensures that the quality of education is not let down in any manner, and therefore is responsible for maintenance of standards.
Right.
Now, when they're maintaining standard, if it does not recognize a particular university, then that university is said to be a fake university. Now, for the purposes of maintaining standard, it created, and this is what was the issue, it created something called a search team. The search team, the purpose of the search team was, or the search committee was, that it will decide who will be appointed and how the appointment, etc., will take place. And this was for the purposes of appointment of the VC. Now, what was done by the state committee was to, by amendments, contravene that and to have its own modus operandi to decide on who the VC will be. Now, this was in direct contradiction to at least three Supreme Court judgments, all three of them equally important. One was the Anime Sundar Das judgment, which stated that the state government by amendment cannot usurp the power of the chancellor or the governor. So that was one, which was a landmark case. Here the professor was drawing cartoons showing his political affiliation or his political mindset, and that is why he was terminated. The second, again, a landmark judgment, was the Gadhvi judgment, or the Gambhar Vidhan K. Gadhvi versus State of Gujarat 2022 judgment, where they said that where education is part of the concurrent list, both union and state can legislate, but also stated that the power of the union will, of course, always be over the state government. And the third was Professor Shrijit versus Rajshri, which is again a 2022 judgment, where the court quashed appointment of the VC on the ground that the provision relating to search committee of the University Act is in conflict with the UGC regulations, and therefore again reiterated the fact that one, where there is a conflict between center and state, center will prevail. Secondly, that under no circumstances the state can come with amendments to basically circumvent the UGC regulation.
Right.
So all of this was taken into by the Honorable Court while making this judgment, this very, very important judgment.
Mr. Pal, so, what we've seen in the recent judgment of the Calcutta High Court and the challenges that were made by the petitioner were against these amendments made in 2012 and 2014. What does the new bill say, which, of course, awaits approval from the governor? But if that sails through, what are the kind of changes that the new bill could bring about in this entire procedure of appointment of vice-chancellors?
Yeah, so the bill that was pending with the governor's office when Jagdeep Dhankar was in office of Governor of West Bengal was that the chancellor was replaced. The governor was replaced with the chief minister as the chancellor of the state universities. Now, this is something really serious. This is just not about law, but also about the tradition that the governors of the state has been. They have been the chancellor of the state universities, and the president is a visitor of the central universities, and that is what is going on at this moment, and that is the rule, and that is being maintained. But what has happened in case of West Bengal, since the governor's office and the government of West Bengal were at loggerheads, they wanted to change the whole scenario, because the governor, the Indian governor, Jagdeep Dhankar, had questioned about the appointment of reappointment of about 25 vice chancellors of the state universities. Now, that has not been signed by the governor. That had been returned to the state assembly, questioning some of the methods that were not followed while sending the bill that was passed in the state assembly, in West Bengal assembly, to the governor's office. So I'm not sure at this moment if the government is really willing to proceed with this particular bill, because after this judgment by the Calcutta High Court, and also there was a judgment by the Supreme Court as well in case of appointment or rather reappointment of the Calcutta University Vice Chancellor, the then Vice Chancellor Shonali Chakraborty, and she had to be removed from that post because the Supreme Court had held that the proper procedure was not followed in her case as well.
Right.
So the state government, I do not think, is going to proceed with with that particular bill where the chief minister becomes a chancellor. So as of now, the governor remains to be the chancellor of the state universities. And since the state government is maintaining a good relation with the governor's office so far in West Bengal at this moment with the new incumbent of the governor's house, C.V. Anand Bose, it seems that they are taking a moderate path at this moment to resolve these issues, because this is just not the question of politics, but this is also about maintaining the quality of education in the state, quality of education in these prestigious institutions, and many new universities that have been set up over the last 10 years.
Right. So the West
politics
Bengal
should be-
government may have taken a moderate view, but this is something the tussle, Mr. Sankla, is also being playing across in other states. In Kerala, in Tamil Nadu, we've seen one after the other state governments brought in new bills to actually replace the governor as chancellor with the chief minister. Is it just politics, or is there more than what meets the eye?
Well, predominantly it's politics. Second, it's power. And third, he who controls, say, education also controls the students. That's the problem. But the problem here is that if you actually go by this and you allow the state governments to regulate education, you know that the quality of education in various states is a sorry state of affairs indeed. And therefore, the advent of UGC was very important. It was imperative. Also, it was important that the center controls it because of political affiliations. Various dubious universities had also mushroomed up all across India. So therefore, probably to control that, that is one. Secondly, also to increase the level, to uplift the level of education, it was also important that UGC or an organization like UGC controls the quality and the fund of, and the system, creates standard operating procedures. You do know that wherever there are standard operating procedures, human errors, human intervention, and human bias is substantially reduced. And therefore, it is again very, very important to have, though it's in the concurrent list, the advent of the center taking care to ensure that there is a level playing field all across India in different colleges. The Honorable Court also has given credence to that. As far as right to equality is there, Article 14 is there. It actually said this, that there has to be equal playing field. And the equal playing field is equally important for the students as it is for the vice chancellors or any person or the professors or the education criteria or the promotion criteria or whatever have you. As I told you, the various judgments of 2022 itself, which are all landmark in themselves, also give credence to this very, very fundamental issue that you need to protect education. For the purpose of the protection of education, it is important that the center steps in to create a level playing field.
Precisely.
It should not be that states like Delhi or Bombay or particular states are given favoritism treatment and there are other states that suffer, and therefore there is an uneven playing field. So politics definitely, power also, and the third is of course personal biases, control by personal motives, etc. also play a huge role in this.
So this is about the state universities, Mr. Pal, but have you also seen similar situations in central universities, particularly when there are political rivals? Because we see more of that happening in states where there are these rival parties and where politics takes precedence over everything else.
Absolutely, absolutely. I mean, the politics is what is actually, diminishing this very prestigious post of a vice chancellor of state university. And let us also be very clear that it's not the sole authority of the chancellor to select the vice chancellor of the state university. The similar thing applies for the central universities as well. So there is a search cum selection committee which is constituted with some experts from the field, and there are representatives of the government, representative of the chancellor, someone who is very distinguished and who are eligible to select 3 names out of the applicants who would be willing to hold that post. So there is a process, as Mrs. Angla was mentioning, that there is a standard operating procedure, and if you maintain that, there is less chance of getting influenced by either politics or in any other vested interest, and that has to be maintained. And that selection can come search committee. They recommend 3 names to the chancellor, and out of which the chancellor will just pick up one of the names who is eligible candidate to be the vice chancellor of the state university, or in case of central universities, it's the president who will choose that person. So there is a process which needs to be maintained, and that has not been maintained here. And wherever you have deviation from the standard operating procedure, you have problem. Yes, it is. If the governor or the chancellor is in good relation or good rapport with the with a political party in power in particular state, then there is no problem as such, and the state government can choose the candidate of their choice. But where there is rival political party who think that the governor is the agent of the union government, which is being run by the opposition party or the rival party, there the problem starts, and that is what is happening in many states, including West Bengal.
I'll take this question because the UGC here is the main player. How much authority does the UGC hold in ensuring that all of the regulations are followed, and the search committee, the members of the search committee are exactly those people who the regulations prescribes? Or is it always, when it's not followed, that we have to look at the courts to actually come up with an order?
Well, courts are the last bastion of justice and protection. So, I mean, if there is any difficulty, contradiction, controversy, questions, you do go to the court under its writ jurisdiction. But that's not the issue. You see, rightly so, what does the search committee constitute of? It constitutes of one representative of UGC, one representative of the state university, and one nominated by the governor. I mean, that's a very fair system.
Right.
And then, as rightly stated, 3 names are given, and those are brought forth. Now, as far as UGC is concerned, what does UGC do, and what has UGC done over the years? And when it has failed to do, you've gone to the court, and the courts have come down very heavy on UGC. One, as I said, it's the bastion of funds. It makes sure that funds are provided to various universities. There is a criteria that is again followed. For example, I'm from SRCC. SRCC, they had a UGC meet this year itself. The second is as far as maintenance of standards is concerned. And as far as maintenance of standards is concerned, as rightly stated, you have the search committee. Now, what under that second part, what does UGC do? UGC also checks whether the universities are following the criteria and the checklist as provided by UGC. And if they fail to do that, then those are, so to say, deregistered, or they would be fake universities. They would have no legal sanctity. And now the question only is UGC proactive in doing it? Well, that's a question. Only judgment, and depending on which state you are in, the answer is there. But this is what the purpose of UGC is. Whether it is doing it, quite frankly, yes, in many states, quite vigilantly. In certain states, there are other difficulties, but those states generally have law and order situation. So as far as the powers of UGC are concerned, and let me also tell you that, there is also a question as far as how long UGC will last, because there are also some questions of bringing in some new format. But as on now, as far as UGC is concerned, it is doing its job on both the fronts. And as I said that, if Shriram College of Commerce can have a meet to see whether it qualifies the UGC grant, then I'm sure any other college in India would actually have the same issues.
Certainly. So the bottom line is regulations do exist. There is a body which takes care of all this. It just has to be implemented in the right manner as prescribed in law. And politics should be the last thing that should meddle with education and educational institutions. So that having been said, I'll have to wind up the program. Thank you, Mr. Pal and Mr. Sankla, for joining us on this edition of Perspective, sharing your thoughts with us and our viewers. And to you viewers, thank you for your time as well. I'll see you same time tomorrow now. Take good care of yourselves. Keep watching Sensor TV.